Mr. Speaker.
I call the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Mr. Speaker, today the country heard the Back to the Future budget from the National Party, as though they're in some sort of time warp for the last 21 years. I can recall this budget because I heard it before. I heard it back in 1991 when one called Ruth Richardson came here with a mother of all budgets, and it helped create hardship, misery. Tens of thousands of people lost their jobs, state assets were sold, large chunks of the country were flogged off overseas. Remember those quotes that National signed up to back then, and all repeated again today as though they have learnt nothing. Remember how National was going to solve all New Zealand's economic woes and create a better future for all of us? This is what they said back then, quotes, "For too long we have struggled in a trap of economic stagnation and rising debt. No economic growth, rising unemployment and a huge overseas debt." Does that sound familiar? On New Zealand's external debt, this is what they said: "We now owe more to foreigners relative to our size of our economy than almost any other country of our kind." Does that sound familiar? Yes. On National's visions back then, or vision back then, again repeated today, this is what they said: "A society where the disadvantaged have access to high-quality social services." So it tells you back then they had a sense of humour as well. Repeated again today. I'll go on. "A society where workplaces are creative and dynamic. A society that's prosperous, confident and paying its way in the world." Which society were they talking about? But I heard it all again today. And they went on to transform New Zealand from a declining, debt-ridden country into a dynamic, enterprising and prosperous nation. And on asset sales, this is the best of all. These sales are designed to free the assets for more effective and competitive private sector management. The whole economy will benefit. Here again, same old mantra 21 years later. And lastly, they said on the fiscal position, the improved fiscal position has resulted in major improvement in the outlook for public sector debt. All repeated again today. And from that mother of all budgets came the glimmer of an idea for Ruth's less than gifted colleague, a young Bill English. Not only listened back then to that speech in the House, sadly, he actually believed it. And I can recall him and Maurice Williamson. Well, and thank heavens for Maurice Williamson. I can recall Maurice Williamson and Bill English coming out of a caucus row we had, and you know what they said to me back then when I said, "Your economic policy's rubbish"? You know what they said? "Winston, what are you going to say when it all works out?" Yes? Oh, yes, I remember. There's my evidence. "Winston, what are you going to say when it all works out?" To which I said, "And what are you going to say when it doesn't?" And 21 years on, there he sits, representing nothing, standing for nothing, and they have learnt precisely nothing in that time. And today, in a sincere tribute to Ruth, Bill has decided to reproduce her 1991 budget. What an act of political courage. What vision. What insight. It shows that they've learned nothing. We hear the same old rhetoric, the same old excuses, the same old, same old. To be fair, though, this was a great budget. If you're not a pensioner with a big power bill, last year 30,000 New Zealand households had their power cut off because they couldn't pay the power prices. To be fair, it's a great budget if you're not an exporter trying to sell goods overseas with a dollar that's out of control and without any government support. It's a wonderful budget if you don't have a student loan. It's a great budget if you're not a mother or father with children to feed and educate. It's a great budget for workers undecided about heading to Australia. This will certainly make up their mind. And it's a great budget if you're not an elderly New Zealander with your grandchildren and children living overseas and knowing that you're never likely to see them again apart from the odd holiday that either you or they can afford. It's a great budget for those people. New Zealand is living through its biggest economic crisis, as we know, since the Great Depression. And as with last year and the year before, this budget will simply make the situation worse. This crisis was created by financial manipulators in the United States. This financial crisis was a result of enormous greed, right out of power and out of control in the States. And we all know who they were. And one of their former employees is supposed to be running New Zealand, but he's running New Zealand into the ground. This budget is the latest example of New Zealand stumbling like a punch-drunk boxer from one panacea to the next. The reason why Nationalists brought in this budget is because it simply has no ideas about how to deal with the situation. Their only answer is to privatise, sell, cut back and hope. The very rich will not be hurt by this budget today. The National Party knows how to look after its mates. As Morris Williamson just said, it's a great budget. He didn't add but for his mates. Remember how National was going to make New Zealand the financial capital of the world back then? Remember, Mr. Williamson, how they were going to make New Zealand the financial capital of the world? And then just 3 years ago, John Key gave that idea a rerun. What happened? He couldn't even get the cycleway sorted out. It's still not complete. Every now and then, a light bulb goes off in the brains of the neoliberal Neanderthals in the National Cabinet. And if the country's children act like this, we'd put them all on Ritalin. Did you notice today that the Klingons on the starboard bow, all along here, never got up to clap? Not one rose to clap, even though they were extolled and lauded for their help to the national government. Not one of those members rose to salute John Key or anybody else for that matter. And did you witness National's backbench clapping today? Hands clapping up here, knees knocking down there. Let me have the list, please. First of all, this member, because of this budget, is going to be gone. Remember her? The Kate Moss lookalike. But she's definitely gone. Next election, because of this budget, she's out of here. Then there's somebody you've never seen before, Miss Invisible from Christchurch. She's going to be gone. Out of here. And then you got I work for the bosses. This woman. Remember that? Now, you asked me which one? I don't know. But this one here, Kate Wilkinson, she's gone. And then you got this one that had a brief political flutter. The one from Auckland Central, most definitely because of this budget, going to be gone, out of here. And then you got Goodbye Limousines himself. He's going to be gone, as you all know. Good night, the good life, all gone, out the door. And then you got Mr. Somersault, whatever he can. He's gone. He's definitely out of here. I want you to see it because it's important. I hope this is on national TV, so you need to know what's going to happen here shortly. And then you got My Life's Tough at the bottom. Tudor Flavel, he's going to be gone. There's no way the Maori people are going to suck up to that budget and let him get away with it. He's definitely going to be out of there. Then we've got the possum caught in the headlights. He's definitely gone. He's definitely on his way out. And then, I bet this is going to be very sad because this is all about Paradise Lost. He'll be gone. Sam Lauterlinger, he's going to be out of the way. Like you, Sam, but your party let you down, and you should have paid more attention at the budget time. And then you got... I've had enough of this already. She's gone. Won't be able to take any more of this, because this is embarrassing. It's embarrassing to be seen to be signing up to that sort of economic rubbish and hoping to win an election. But that's not all. You've got this one here. These are on the list. This one's here, number 34. Hello, Pyongyang. Well, no more National Party now. And then you've got, is there another corner dairy available? He'll be on his way. No way he can last. Not with a budget like that. And then you've got, I hope there's a Chinese restaurant on Don Road still not taken up yet. But he's going to be gone as well. Nice men, but they're going to be gone. And then you've got no more Kirana. The man from the Cook Islands, he's gone. Because that's what happens when you're careless about a budget. Oh, and then you got, if you've seen YouTube lately, you got Miss South Carolina. Have you seen YouTube with the interviews? Well, she's gone. And then Uncle Tom needs a new job. He's definitely going to be gone. And the man with the unfortunate name, nice guy, from the West Coast called Chris Archambault. Very unfortunate name, that. Won't say any more of that. Oh, and the last one is the ventriloquist dummy. He's definitely going to be gone. This man. This man is definitely going to be gone. Now, see, the point is, Mr. Speaker, they have not been paying attention. National spending tens of millions of dollars, dragging us into free trade agreements that makes New Zealand look like some sort of international knock shop. And in the meantime, the exporters, the manufacturers, the provincial engine rooms of the economy are totally forgotten. Look today in the paper, this is what this man said. He's hardly a New Zealand First or Labour supporter, I don't think. The Chief Executive of the New Zealand Manufacturers Export Association, John Whaley, said he did not have high hopes. Will it do much for growth? No, because the government has resolved from changes to monetary and fiscal policy. We'll see much more of the same, widening current account deficit, more borrowing and more pressure on the currency, and lower returns for exporters. All there in a nutshell. My advice to him is wake up and smell the coffee. Go and vote New Zealand First. You've got a chance here. You've got a chance here. Every month we'll lose a bit more of our manufacturing base. Every month another plant closes and more workers lose their jobs. This happens because our currency is way overvalued. It suits the speculators and currency traders, the sort of John Keys of this world who made his money in that sort of exploitative, greedy, corrupt environment. And we all know because Merrill Lynch had to be bailed out by the American taxpayer. The financiers and the overseas banks. This government drools over mining in our conservation estate. It gets excited about fracking for oil or drilling in a pristine ocean setting. But it will do nothing to keep one factory open or help one exporter earn one more dollar or keep one more job. Tough times are ahead. Dairy prices are falling. We are staring down the barrel of really hard times. The real people in heartland New Zealand did not create these problems, but this government is going to make them pay for it. You know, advanced economies like Singapore, Sweden, Germany, Norway have two things in common. First of all, they have high savings, far greater than 10% of their GDP. And also they have great manufacturing bases, far greater than 25% of GDP. And we in New Zealand were once like that. When we were one of the greatest countries on earth, we had savings well above 14%. Today it's negative. We had manufacturing percentage of GDP at 30%, that's 3-0. Today it's now dropped to 13. And there gets Bill English and the National Party front bench and John Key, and they've got no idea what they're going to do about it. I mean, you don't have to hear rocket scientists, but I heard not one word about how they're going to redress these two critical factors to make us like those great countries, whereas once we were greater than all those countries. We'll never get rich again without tax policies that encourage high savings, research and development, investment into productive plant assets that create high margin exports and jobs. We'll never get rich when we flog off our timber in its most raw state without any added value. We'll never get rich with a fishing industry part owned by the Japanese or fish from foreign rust buckets with poorly cared for kamikaze crews. We'll never get rich with the great Marlborough wine industry again, like all others, up to 50% foreign ownership and getting worse. We'll never get rich with a political party with its Klingons who've learnt nothing from this disastrous experience. We'll never get rich if we ignore the need for new Kiwi IT industries to bloom and grow in a sympathetic tax environment that keeps them here, that also starts up the industry and yet gives them reasons to stay. To be fair, though, this government does one thing really well. The millions it spends on public relations, spin doctors, consultants, media manipulators and navel-gazers creates an appearance of normality where chaos prevails. That's right. And they're spending $120 million just on selling these assets. $120 million just on selling these assets. I'm looking at the press, I'm up in the gallery. There isn't one person there who couldn't do the job for free. Make an application. Because I tell you, this is exploitation of the very worst sort. And you know what the $120 million is going to? In some cases, Aussie banks to give us independent advice about how we should sell the asset. Like that? We're going to give Aussie banks all these millions to give us independent advice about how to sell the asset. This is a rotten budget. It contains all the putrid elements of 20 years of failure. It did not work in 91-92, and it will not work 20 years later in 2012. But there was one great benefit from the 91-92 budget. You know what it was? Well, we booted the legs out of first past the post, and we got MMP. There was one great benefit. We saw these people sell the party down the line, as Morrison and Moore did, couldn't wait to sell the party out, and down the tubes they went. They went from the biggest victory ever, 1990, to 3 years later a hung parliament and MMP. So there'll be some good coming out of this. And you know what it's going to be? An early election. For 21 years, the Minister has come to Parliament at great expense to the long-suffering people of Dipton and the rest of the taxpayers. And guess what he has learned? He's learned absolutely nothing in all those years since Ruth gave that stupid budget. But of course, who else is in charge of this? Well, Mr. Spray and walk away himself. Someone who was headhunted by, of all people, Michelle Bogue, who was found to try and corrupt a commission of inquiry in this country. Well, that didn't stop her from going on to be the National Party president. Caught red-handed trying to corrupt the wine box inquiry. And she headhunted him. How appropriate. As a man who trained in principles and ethics and sharp business practice at Merrill Lynch. An outfit engaging in every shonky business practice that almost collapsed the Western society and economies back in 2007, 2008. That's his background. I know that there are people in this country who think, well, he's wealthy, he must be good. But how did he get his wealth? And if you are one who salutes Merrill Lynch, then frankly, you have no idea how damaging they have been to Western society and to ordinary people's lives who in the main have lost, in many cases, everything they ever had because of this greed. That's the fact of the matter. A man whose time was well up, and an early exit now awaits him and his incompetent party. Because, frankly, this country wants leadership, not someone who does that. Minces and simpers around the country. A photo opportunity for anything goes to the opening of an envelope. But when it comes to the tough issues, is never there. A man who's actually put on the All Black gear and modelled it. And then got confused as to who won the World Cup. So he ended up shaking hands with both the President and the Captain at the same time. I say that their time is up, Mr. Speaker, because they have proven in their fourth budget that they haven't got any ideas to be of benefit to their people. And the sooner they go, and I believe it will be long before the 2004 term of 3 years is up, the sooner they go, the better for everyone concerned.
Mr. Speaker.
I call the honourable